All right, we are ready to start our bag 3, which is the panel 3 bag. So in your bag, you should have your 9 12-inch squares that we've numbered, and then you should have your papers, and you should have your sashing fabric in the bag. So again, making sure that your paper is centered on your sashing stack here before we start cutting it apart. So we're going to cut that apart. We're going to work with one of these blocks today, so we're going to take our number 3. This is number 7. Actually, we are going to work with number 7 today. So number 7 block is what I'm going to start working with. This panel 3 sticker can now come off. You can stick it on your bag if you want, because your bag is already labeled panel 3. So we need one of those, and we also need our unit A1 to A5 papers, which I'm just going to put at the top here for right now. And again, you should have 9 of each of these papers of unit A1 to A5. There should be 9 of each. You should have 9 pieces of sashing underneath your template paper here. So the first thing we're going to do is cut our sashing pieces apart. It's got folded here. Alright, and again, when I cut this apart, I use my add-a-quarter ruler. And the reason I do that is there's a lip on here which compensates for the thickness of my paper clip so that my ruler does not flop when I'm cutting. So I'm putting my ruler right on line number 1. So we're cutting on that solid line. And again, we're cutting through 9 layers here, so you want to make sure your blade is sharp. That was line number 1. Then we're going to move on to line number 2. So we're just cutting in numerical order. And again, the reason we do that, if I skip a line, if I go from 2 to 10, let's say, I will be cutting through my section 2 over here. So it's important to stay in numerical order when you're cutting your templates apart. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, and 3 done. Moving on to 4, and again, in this series of papers, we have 2 number 3s, so we're just going to cut number 3 again. And then move on to number 4. And this piece here that says scrap is just, we're not going to need that for the project, so we're just going to keep that with our project in case we do need to fix something if we make a mistake. Then we're going to move on to line number 5. And then number 6. And I've got to clip these middle guys now, and I couldn't reach them before. So we'll put a clip on this section and on this one. So if you clip them before you cut them, then your papers don't move on you. Otherwise they'll just fly away. So 6 and 7, 8, 11, and 12. Okay, so what we're going to do now is put these on their appropriate piles. I'm just going to move that away. So this one, so on your template, if if you look beyond your paper clip here, it'll give you a section number, then it'll tell you, it'll say temp and then A1. That indicates that you need that for your unit A1. So I'm going to put that on the A1 pile. This one says temp A3, so we'll go on A3, temp A2, and temp A3, temp A1, this one's A5, and A5, this one's A5 as well, A5, A2, A3, A4, and A4. So those are the sashing pieces we're going to need for those units. So before we can start sewing, we need to cut our block apart. So again, a reminder that the number has to be right side up. So if you've got it turned so your number is sideways, don't cut, because you're not going to cut it right. So it has to be right side up like that. And again, you're going to pull out the part of the pattern that we wrote for this this pattern, your page 5. It'll say panel 3 bag on it, and it talks about square 7, and then we're going to just follow these instructions to cut our block apart. So again, just referring back to this diagram, you'll notice that this block has turned again compared to our number 2, which was like this, with the corner at the top and the 2 long pieces up here. They're now down in this corner. So every panel bag is cut slightly differently, so you have to make sure you've got the right page for the right bag. So make sure you have your panel 3 bag cutting instructions. And again, if you don't have a rotating mat, you can situate your block on the corner of a table or a desk that you can walk around the corner to cut. I don't have that option with this setup, so I'm going to pull out my rotating mat and I'm going to put my block on there, and I'm just going to pull my number off. It's important here that you make sure that you keep your number right side up, so I'm just going to stick it to my mat. I know that that's the top of my block. Okay, so we're going to start cutting this. Before I do though, I have my camera today, so I'm going to just take a picture of my block so I have a visual reference as to what my block should look like once I am done cutting my block and sewing my pieces together. So you'll know right away if you've turned a block in your square that you're creating. So I'm just going to put that to the side, and I'm going to grab my 3.5 inch ruler. So the first cut that we're going to make is a 3-inch cut on the left hand side of your block. And again, you want to make sure that you're nice and square at the bottom and at the top. So with a 3-inch line, and just make sure you double check that you're on 3. We're going to cut, and without moving anything, we're going to cut a 3-inch piece off the bottom. So I'm just going to put my ruler down here. And same thing, you want your 3-inch line on the bottom, and you want to make sure you're nice and square on the sides. So now I'm just going to move those 3 pieces out of my way so that I don't cut into them again. And I'm going to take another 3-inch piece off the left side of the big square that I've got right here. So 3-inch line is on the left side of your block again, making sure you're nice and square top and bottom. We're going to do a cut here, and then we're going to do another 3-inch cut on the bottom. So this time you're just going to move these 2 pieces out of the way. You leave this bottom one there, and then we're going to cut another 3-inch piece off the left side. And then we're going to do a 3-inch cut off the top. So I'm just going to rotate my mat. So your 3-inch line should be on the top of your block. And now I'm going to put this back so my block's right side up. And I'm just going to move my pieces aside. So this grouping, your grouping should be like this. This is unit 2. This is unit 3. Unit 1. And then you have unit 5 and unit 4. So that's what it should look like. So you have some, this one's kind of easy. You can see the petal here curving through. So as we're sewing this together, those lines should follow just like they are at the moment. So what we're going to do now is start sewing. So we're going to start with our unit 1. So I'm going to grab one of those papers and look at my paper, and I can see here that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. So we're going to start stacking with our section number 4, which is going to be, oh, we forgot to put our paper clips on. So first we're going to indicate where our sew sides are. So you're going to take your, I'm using Wonder Clips, so section 3 of your unit A5 should have the sew side at the top, and this long piece will have it at the bottom. And then this one will be on the right side. This one will be at the bottom. This one will be at the top. So what I'm doing here, I'm just putting a clip on the side that has a red line on my diagram. So if you look at your diagram, there are red lines on the blocks. Those are our sew sides, and I'm just indicating that with my Wonder Clips. Okay, so this one is at the top. This one's on the left side. And this one is on the long side at the top. So you should have your clips sitting like that. So I'm going to take, so we're doing unit 1, so I want to find section 4 of my unit 1, which is going to be this piece right here. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to turn my block so that my clip is at the top, because that is going to be my sew side. So when we're stacking these, you always want your sew side at the top. And then we want section 3, which is going to be one of these, and your sew side is on the long side. So I'm just going to pull one of those, put that there. Section 2 is also a sashing piece, again, sew sides on the long side. And these are all right side up. And then section 1 is this one, and again, the sew side is up. So I'm just going to push this to the side. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is bring down section 1 on your paper. Turn your paper so that your line number 1 is at the top, the same as your clip. And then I'm just going to flip this side to side so it's wrong side up. My clip is still at the top. And I'm going to put my paper on my piece, and I just want to see a very little bit beyond my paper. Then you're going to take your glue stick and you're just going to glue right in the center of section 1. Glue that down. Remove your clip. Grab your, I'm just going to put these back on unit 1. Grab your fold template. Put it on line number 1. Fold. Take your add a quarter ruler and tuck that in against your folded paper, and you're going to trim that. So just like that. Move your ruler away, remove your template, bring your sew side to the top, your paper is still folded, bring your next section down, and just line up your two sew sides. And we have lots for the length here, so I'm just gonna put this so I can see a little bit on this side. And then you can take your glue stick again and just glue your edges so that they don't move by the time you get to your machine. And we're gonna sew on line number 1. So again, when we're doing the actual paper piecing, you wanna be using an open-toed foot. So that's what I have on here right now, and I'm gonna start sewing above my line number 1. And I'm sewing right off my paper. I'm just gonna get rid of this right here. And then you're gonna go over to your iron and you're just gonna press that over. And again, just a reminder, the pressing is really important in paper piecing. If your seam is not nice and tight in here, if you've got play, when we do remove the papers, it's going to change the dimension of your piece. So it's very important to press when you're paper piecing. Okay, so now we've sewn line number 1, we're going to move on to line number 2. So this one we've sewn across, we've sewn on our line number 1, so it's crisscrossing with 2. So we're going to bring up paper and fabric against the template. With your left hand you're holding your paper, with your right hand you're grabbing at the intersection of the 2 fabrics and you're just ripping that off the paper. Take your add a quarter ruler and tuck that in and trim. Then slide your ruler out, slide your template out, turn your piece so your sew side's at the top. Bring down section number 3. And same thing, you just want to see a bit of fabric on this side. And we're just going to glue our 2 sew sides together. And now we're going to sew on line number 2. And this line runs right across my paper, so I'm just going to start at the top of my paper and sew right off. And then we're going to press that over again. Now we're going to go to line number 3. This one has no stitching across it, so we just need to bring up the paper, slide your ruler in, and trim. Move your ruler, rotate this to the top, bring down your last piece, and line up your sew sides. So this one, you can see here that the edge of my fabric is going to be pretty much right on the edge of my line. So you want to make sure the fabric is in line with these 2 outside lines right here. So this piece is really tight. So you have to make sure you line those lines up. Alright, so we've got that. Now we're going to sew on line number 3. And again, this one, it goes across my paper. So I'm starting at the top of my paper and I'm sewing right off of it. And then we'll press that one over. And then this is going to be your section number 1. So this sits like this. And you can see here the petal is following this one, so that's sitting right. And you can also just check your picture to make sure that it's sitting the right way. Okay, so now we're ready to move on to A2, unit A2. So again, we're just going to grab one of those papers, grab our pieces of sashing that are on top of that paper, which there are 2. And again, we're going to see here how many sections we've got. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So section 5 is going to be this one. So again, if you look on your paper, it'll say Unit A2, Section 5. So we're going to take that one, bring it here, putting the sew side at the top. Then Section 4 is going to be this one. And again, sew side at the top. Section 3 is a sashing piece, and again, the sew side's on the long side. So we're just going to put that one like that. Section 2, same thing, sew side's the long side, so we're just going to take one of those, put it there, and I'll put these back on the A2 pile. And then our section 1 for A2 is this one, and the sew side is right there. So again, and I can't stress this enough, make sure your clips are at the top. That indicates your sew side, it indicates where you're sewing. Alright, so we're going to grab our section number 1, bring it down, and again, find your line number 1, and turn your paper so that it's at the top, not on the side like that, but at the top. Take your paper, your clip, and just turn that side to side so that your clip is still at the top. We're going to put our paper on the wrong side to wrong side with our paper, and we're just going to glue that in place. I'm just going to flip that over, just glue in the center. Remove my clip. And now we're going to trim on line number 1. Tuck the ruler in and trim. Move your ruler, slide your template out, rotate your sew side to the top. Bring down section 2 and line up your 2 sew sides. So we're going to just glue those together. And again, you can see there's just a little bit of fabric on the side. And we're going to go sew on line number 1. So again, I'm starting above my line number 1. And in this case, I'm just going to sew right off my paper. Alright, so I'm just going to press that one over. And we're going to move on to line number 2. So line number 2 is over here. This one has a stitching line across it, which is fine, but we're going to bring up paper and fabric against our template. Left hand's holding down your paper, right hand's grabbing the 2 fabrics where they're sewn together and just pulling it off your paper. And then just bring your thread out. So this is one of the reasons why I start sewing above my line, is so that when I go to trim my next line, I'm trimming off all this excess thread that I don't want hanging around. So move your ruler away, turn this to the top, slide your template down, so sew side is here, and you're going to line up with sew side of section number 3. And again, we're just going to glue this together. So you don't have to do the gluing if you don't want to, especially we're just doing one block at a time, but when the pieces get longer, you just know that it's not gonna slip out from where it's supposed to be. So this one I started at the top of my paper and I went past my line, so you can see here, my line stopped here and I stitched down here. Okay, so again, we're going to press that over. And now we're moving on to line number 3. So this one has stitching across it. So we're going to bring paper and fabric up. Hold your paper with your left hand. With your right hand, grab the 2 fabrics and tear them off your paper. Tuck your ruler in and trim. Move your ruler away, turn your sew side to the top, move your template down, bring your section number 4, remove your clip, and line up your two sew sides, and again, this one is tight, so we want to have fabric from this line to this line. So if I just bring this down, and one of the tricks that we use for that is if you just poke a hole on that line and on this line, you now have a visual on this side to know where you need to line up. So those two holes that I made should be on the very edge of the fabric that I'm adding here, my section number 4. Okay, so I'm just going to bring those two edges together, make sure that my two little holes I made with my ripper are on the very edge of that fabric that I'm adding. So I'm just going to glue those together again. And now we're sewing on line number 3. Okay, and again, I'm starting above my line. And I'm sewing right off my paper. All right, we're going to press that. We're moving on to line number 4, which again has some stitching across. I'm bringing up paper and fabric, holding paper with my left hand, grabbing the two intersecting fabrics here, ripping them off my paper. And if the paper does come along with your fabric, that's fine. And then we're going to trim that. Move your ruler away, slide your template down, bring your section 5 down. And this one you have lots of room here, so I'm just going to bring it to this one side. And then I'm just going to glue my edges together. Now we're sewing on line number 4. Then we'll press that one over, that piece over. And this one goes like that. Okay, now we're moving on to unit A3. So again, I'm just going to grab one of these papers and bring down my sashing pieces. So again, just a reminder, this paper has a mistake on it, so we need to change this. Line number 3 is actually line number 4, and the line number 4 is line number 3. So we're just changing the order of those two lines. So you have to make sure you do that for all of your papers in this bag and in the next bag. So it's all the way through the pattern. So this unit has 6 sections. So we're going to start with section number 6, which is this one right here. So sew side up. Section 5 is a sashing piece, and the sew side is on the long side, so we're just going to take one of those, put it on top. Section 4 is also a long piece, or a sashing piece, and its sew side is on the long side as well. So I'm going to take that and put that there. Section 3 is this one, so sew side up. Section 2 is the sashing piece. Again, sew side is the long side. Put that like that, and we'll put these back on the unit A3 pile. And your section 1 is this one, and we're going to bring the sew side to the top. So again, we're going to grab our paper, find section 1, make sure line 1 is at the top, not on the side, at the top. Just like it is, your clip is at the top here, line number 1 needs to be at the top. So I'm just going to bring this down I'm just gonna flip this side to side so it's wrong side up, and I'm gonna put the wrong side of my paper to the wrong side of the fabric. So just like that. I'm gonna grab my glue stick and I'm just gonna glue right in the center of section 1. Glue that on like that. I'm gonna remove my clip. Grab my template. Put it on line number 1. Fold against line number 1. Tuck my ruler in and trim. Move my ruler away. Make sure my sew side's at the top. Bring my template down. Bring down section 2, and just, if you just line that up with your piece that we've just glued on, you'll have lots of room because you just need from here to here. So as long as you have sashing fabric on either side of that line, you're fine. And then I'm just going to glue my 2 pieces together. Like that. And I'm going to sew on line number 1. Press that piece over. And now we're going to find line number 2. And this one has no stitching across it, so again, just the paper up. Tuck my ruler in. Trim. Move my ruler away. Bring my sew side to the top. Bring my template down. Slide down piece number 3, section 3. And line up your sew sides. And again, as long as you have a little bit on this side, you'll have lots on this side. So again, we're just gonna glue that together, and we're going to go sew on line number 2. So again, I'm starting above my line, and I'm sewing right off my paper. Alright, so now we're moving on to line number 3, which is going to be this long one on the side. So this one we have a couple of stitch lines across. So we're going to fold paper and fabric up, grab where it's all joined up, and just rip it off your paper. And all these threads will get trimmed off. So tuck your ruler in, trim that off, move your ruler, bring your sew side to the top, slide your template down, bring down section 4, and we're just going to put this in the center. We need from here to here, so, or sorry, from here to here. So we've got lots on either side of that. I'm just going to glue that together. So now we're sewing on line number 3. And now we're moving on to line number 4, which is this one. And again, we've got a line coming across. I'm just going to bring paper and fabric up, holding my paper with my left hand, grabbing the fabric with my right. Just rip that off, tuck that in, move your ruler away, bring your sew side to the top, slide your template down, and then bring down section 5. And again, we're just going to line up this in the center, we've got fabric on the other side of my paper, so I've got lots. Okay, we'll glue that together, and now we're going to go sew on line number 4. And then we're moving on to our last line, which is line number 5. So again, on the solid line, we've got a stitch line, so I'm bringing up paper and fabric. And I see that I didn't stitch. Oh, yeah, I did. I'll have to fast forward through that. So there is no stitch line here. We're just going to bring paper up, tuck the ruler in, trim, bring your sew side to the top, slide your template out, and bring down section 6. And this one, again, is going to be on the tight side, so you want to make sure you've got fabric from this line to that line. So I can see my lines through my paper. If you have a hard time seeing that, you can use your seam ripper again to make holes in these lines so that you can see that. And I'm just going to put my 2 edges together, and we're going to sew on line number 5. And section 4, or section 3, A3 is done. So we're going to put that there. So this is actually going like this. So that's how it should be sitting. So now we're going to move on to our section number 4, which is this one. So we're going to grab one of these A4 papers. And bring down our sashing pieces. So this one has 3 sections. So section 3 is one of the sashing pieces. The sew side's on the long side, so we're just going to grab that. Put the sew side up. Put this back on the pile. Section 2 is also a sashing piece. Sew side's at the top on the long side. So I'm going to take one of those. Put that there, put that back on A4 pile, and then I'm going to take my section 1, which is going to be sew side at the top like that. Okay, so section 1, again, you want to make sure your line number 1 is at the top right here, same as your clip. And we're just going to flip this side to side, take the clip off, and we're going to glue that piece on. So I'm just centering this way, and then I'm just going to glue that on. So you want to make sure you have fabric from this line to that line, which I do. It's above and below that. Then I'm going to take my fold template. I'm going to fold against my line number 1, tuck my ruler in, trim, move my ruler away, bring my sew side to the top, slide my template down, bring section 2 down, and I'm just going to center this on. As long as I have my sashing fabric past the edge of my paper here and here, I know that I've got my section covered. Okay. And then we're going to sew on line number 1. That one over. And then we're going to move on to line number 2. We're going to trim. Move our ruler away, bring our sew side to the top, slide our template down, and bring down section 3. And again, we've got plenty on the other side of our paper here. So we're just going to glue that together. So the glue is nice for these longer pieces. A lot of times by the time we start here, we get down to the bottom and we're sewing, it'll have slipped a little bit, so. Alright, so we're sewing on line number 2. And then we're going to press that over. That section is done. So this should be sitting like that so you can see the petals coming down this way. So next is section A5. So again, we're going to grab one of those papers. So you can see I've ripped my paper here, but it's not going to be an issue. If you want to, you can tape that together, but when we trim, that'll just come off anyway, so I'm just going to leave it like that. So this one has 6 sections to it, so we're going to grab our sashing pieces here. So section 6 is one of these long ones, so we're going to grab one of those. Again, sew sides on the long side, so we're going to stack it like that. Section 5 is also a sashing piece with the sew side on the long side. Section 4 is a sashing piece. And again, that's going to be the long side. And then section 3 is the little one, so sew side up. Then section 2 is also a sashing piece, and again, sew sides on the long side. We're going to put that like that. And then our section 1 is this long one with the sew side at the top, and it's on the short side. So we're going to grab our section 1 first, and again, line 1 is at the top. We're going to flip this side to side, so our clip's staying at the top. And we're going to put this on. And again, I want to make sure that these 2 lines are on top of the fabric that I'm adding, so I'm just centering this on. So I've got fabric beyond these 2 lines. And I'm just going to glue in the center of that section. And then I'm going to trim on line number 1. So I'm just folding, move this clip, tuck my ruler in, and trim. Bring my sew side to the top, slide my template down, bring down section number 2. And again, I'm just centering this on. You've got lots, we just need from here to here. And I've got fabric beyond that. So I'm just going to glue my 2 sides together. and I'm going to sew on line number 1. And we'll press that over. So now we're trimming on line number 2. So I'm folding against my template, tuck my ruler in, trim, move my ruler away, bring my sew side to the top, slide my template down, slide my section 3 down, and take the clip off. And we're just going to line up our sew sides. We're just going to check our placement. So again, we want to have fabric on either side of these 2 lines, which we do. So I'm just going to, so we can move this over just a little bit. So again, if you want to use that trick, if you just put a hole on those 2 lines, you can see that your fabric, my line is right here, and I've got fabric beyond here and beyond that one on that side. So you're just going to line up your 2 sew sides and glue your edges together, and we're going to sew on line number 2. Okay, once you've pressed that over, we're going to move on to line number 3, which is right here. Tuck your ruler in and trim, slide your ruler away, turn your sew side to the top, slide your ruler down, your template down, bring down section 4, and we're going to glue those 2 sew sides together. All right, then we're going to sew on line number 4. That was line number 3, by the way, not 4. Okay, so we'll press that over. So now we're moving on to line number 4, which is one of these long ones. So put your full template on the line. And again, we've got some stitching across this one. So we're going to bring paper and fabric up. Grab your fabric where it's all meeting up here with your right hand, and just rip that off your paper. And the same thing up here. So you're holding your paper with your left hand, ripping the fabric off, and you can see some of my paper came off of here. That doesn't matter. Just tuck your ruler in, trim, move your ruler away, bring your sew side up, bring your section number 5 down, and again we're just going to center this on here, line up your sew sides, and I'm just going to glue my edges together and just line up your sew sides. So now we are sewing on line number 4. So now we're going to press that section over. And we're going to move on to our last line, which is line number 5. So again, template on the line, fabric and paper up against your fold template, grab, hold with your left and rip with your right. tuck your ruler in and trim. Move your ruler away, bring your sew side up, slide your template down, bring your last section down, and just put your paper in the center of that piece. So we're just going to move this over and glue our edges down. So you can see I'm not using a lot of glue, but it's just enough to prevent that long strip from sliding on me when I'm starting to sew. Alright, so now we're sewing on line number 5. Okay, we'll press that over. Alright, so section 5 should be sitting like that. So again, you can use the picture that you've taken to make sure you have these sitting the right way. So it should be sitting like that. So now we're ready to do some trimming before we can assemble. So again, I'm just going to use a straight edge for doing this. So I'm just going to take each one of these one at a time, and I'm going to put my ruler on the very outside line of my unit. And I'm just going to trim like that. So all the way around. So again, very important, trimming on the very outside line. Do not cut your seam allowance off. If we do that, then we'll be using that last panel. Alright, so I'm just going to keep on trimming here. Okay, so I'm done trimming. So this should be sitting like that. So now we're ready to start sewing our pieces together. So basically you have your unit 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're just going to sew them in numerical order basically. And if you need a reference for that, you can just go back to the Chinese lattice pattern on page number 7, sorry. And this diagram here shows you how to do the assembly for the block. And if you pay attention to the white arrows on here, it's telling you, that's what's telling you which way to press. So make sure you're pressing towards the right piece. But to make it easy, we're just basically pressing to the higher number. So if you're putting 1 and 2 together, you're pressing towards 2. And we would add 3, you're gonna press towards 3, press towards 4, and press towards 5, okay? So we're going to start, our unit 1 is gonna go on to unit number 2. So we're just gonna line up those 2 sides, and we're just gonna go and sew that together. So now I've been sewing with my open toe for the paper piecing. I'm gonna take that off, and I'm gonna go back to my 1/4 inch foot for the actual assembly of the block. Right. So again, I'm not taking my paper off. You can take it off. I just like to keep mine on just to keep everything nice and stable. Okay, so we're pressing this to unit A2. So if you put your unit A2 on top and then bring it over, you'll be pressing towards that unit. So we've got, so this goes back like this. So then we're going to take unit 3, flip it onto the 1-2 unit, and we're going to sew those 2 together. So again, you're going to put your unit 3 on top for to press, so that we're pressing towards your unit 3. So again, you want to make sure that your lattice here is lining up like that. So we got 1, 2, and 3, and then 4. There's no match points, so we're going to just sew that on to the 1, 2, 3 unit. So again, also when you're sewing, make sure you're not twisting your seams. Make sure they're sitting flat, so it's not quite flat. So again, make sure your unit 4 is on top when you're pressing. And we're just going to press that over. Alright, so we're going to put this back the way it's supposed to be. So 4 should be down here. So you got 1, 2, 3. Your number 5 is going to come on the left side. So again, your unit 5 should be on the top. And you're going to press over. So your unit 5, or this first block of our panel 3 should be sitting like this. And again, if you want to refer back to your picture, it should look like the picture that we've taken, which it is. So we're going to put our label back onto this block. So this is block 7. And I'm also going to write it on the back. So this is block 7. That's the top of my block. If you are removing your paper when you're doing your assembly, I'd advise that you pin these numbers back on, because this is block 7. It can't be any other block. It goes to the specific area of the quilt. So make sure your labels are staying on and they're not falling off at this point. So again, in your panel 3 bag and on page 5 of your pattern, at the bottom here it has listed all the numbers that should be in the block numbers that should be in your bag. So in this bag you'll be doing 7, which we just did, 9, 11, 19, 21, 23, 30, 31, and 33, and 35 are all the blocks in this bag, and they're all done just like we did block number 7. So we're going to go ahead and finish the 8 other blocks in our panel 3 bag, and then we'll be right back to do panel 4 bag.